most important thing to do is, in our view, is to educate community leaders. And that doesn't mean scientists, doctors, lawyers. That means how do we engage the minister's wife? How do we engage school teachers? How do we engage the guy who runs the barbershop? In knowing how science is conducting, knowing how people are protected when clinical trials are being conducted, that they're not guinea pigs, that what their rights are, how the science actually moves forward, what an IRB is, how that protects people. And so that when there's a barbershop conversation and someone says, hey man, I heard that they're over there studying that on those people over there in Africa. They're just using them like blah, blah, blah. Or they say, yeah, I know they got a vaccine. They got it hidden up there and, up in Maryland in the mountains. That leader in the community can say, man, no, that's not quite right. There's been some bad things done. We don't want to deny that. But, there's this trial that they're doing right now. And and people are part of it, and they're protected, and there are people who make sure that everybody's treated right, and they're trying to find the vaccine. There's some information over there on the table. You should take some, so that we get it right, and that there's a value to understanding it and getting it right.
So how are you finding these community leaders? Is this a hard sell? Is it?
Well, sometimes it's a hard sell, but what's really great is when you see the transformation. I mean, one of the projects, one of the components of our Be the Generation project, for example, is that we have community grants, so that community organizations can apply to us for, they're small grants. They range from $5,000 to $40,000 or $50,000 for a year. And you can apply to do community forums, to develop outreach events, to develop a brochure that's specific to your community, that educates them about the areas of science that our project looks at. And before we began our grants program, a colleague at the HIV Vaccine Trial Network said to me, there's a group of leaders I'd like to meet with. Can you help organize it? And I said, sure. So we organized a meeting for him with about 25 Black gay leaders from around the country. And there was this one person who's a dear colleague to me, and I'd never heard him on this topic before, but he stood up in the middle of the meeting. He said, why should we be involved in that? Why should we be guinea pigs and all of that? And he had just such profoundly negative views about the research. And it was a real eye-opener to me, because this is a person who has a PhD in communications, who taught at Howard University, and so who, but represented a large cross-section. Because as we've gone to other meetings and conferences, I've talked to physicians who, when trying to reach out to them about this, will say to me, oh yeah, well that sounds good, but let them try it on other people first. And I'm not recommending my patients to be part of that. And what you recognize in that is that, particularly when we're thinking about race and culture, that people retain their histories, and this goes back to why history and culture matters. And just because they get a PhD or an MD doesn't mean that they disregard everything else that they know to be true from their histories. And they have to balance that. And we have to be a part of engaging in that conversation. And now, this person, this colleague, his organization applied to be one of our grantees. We cajoled him. We kept saying, this would be really good for you. And he did. And now is a terrific advocate, and even talks about, his own past. That's why I can convey the story, because he talks about his transformation, because it was the first time really that he had been brought in a process where there was an ongoing conversation with the scientists. and the people doing the research. And I think that that's an opportunity that we need more of. There is far too much division between the scientists and the research are over here, and the people are so far downstream after a product has been developed, or they read something in the paper either about a trial that went wrong or that failed or something, but they don't know, they're not engaged in the conversation throughout unless they're fortunate enough to be a participant in the trial or right where the trial is taking place. And we need a broader conversation so that everyone understands science in our community.